Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. The Michigan Department of Transportation recently announced postponing a planned I-375 reconstruction project, citing increasing costs and community feedback. The plan would have converted the freeway interchange to ground-level boulevard, and the project was to be funded in part by $100 million in federal funding from the Biden administration Inflation Reduction Act. And the rest was estimated to be at least $300 million more would have come from state funding. When the project was announced in 2022, then Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg characterized the federal project dubbed Reconnecting Communities as a reparative one, aimed at fixing injustices created from federal highway construction of the mid-20th century. The announcement that 375 would be redesigned raised interest and even optimism. Was this an opportunity to address the wrongs of the past? Was this truly going to help resolve the razing of Detroit's Black Bottom and Paradise Valley neighborhoods in the name of paved roads? There were community input meetings, and the plans presented gained both support and criticism. MDOT hosted a presentation on the history Black Bottom and Paradise Valley neighborhoods. They hosted it at the Charles H. Wright Museum. Despite being a controversial project, one of the points that was largely agreed upon was that if the 375 reconstruction was going to be reparative, there should be at least some recognition of the thriving neighborhoods that Detroiters once called home. Marcia Black and Lex Draper Garcia Bay from Black Bottom Archives join me in studio right now. Marcia is the Director of Archives and Education, and Lex is the Director of Community Engagement and Programs. Lex and Marcia, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much.
Of course. So, Marcia, MDOT recently announced that it was halting its plans to redevelop I-375 as we know it, runs through a large portion of what was Black Bottom. We covered this project development in detail at WDET. One of the questions that came up time and time again was how the history of Black Bottom would be represented or accounted for after the project was done. So what was your reaction when you heard MDOT was canceling the Reconnecting Communities project?
My initial reaction was disappointment, honestly. I think I'm definitely treating this as a pause to this development journey, and still understanding that there have been delays throughout this process. Like, this isn't necessarily the first delay. And also understanding what it means to delay, considering the national climate that we're in right now and fluctuations around what funding, can we still use for this project, and like a delay, kind of lessens opportunities for that. But then I think from an organizational standpoint, we've been collecting oral histories from Black Bottom storytellers since 2017. And so this is work that didn't start with this project, and it's work that won't stop with this project. So we're still fully motivated to continue to make sure that this history is preserved, and that the lessons that it has to offer are incorporated into our future.
And there was criticism of the reconstruction plan, but it still did present an opportunity for something different than what we currently have. Now that it is paused, not canceled, but paused, does it feel like Detroit lost out on a chance to build something positive for the future? Marcia, we'll start with you.
No, not at all. For me, I think the 375 project kind of was an invitation for us to think about repair opportunities for Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. I love to remind folks that Black Bottom didn't get a historical marker until 2020. And so I think we shouldn't see 375 as the only opportunity to think about how we can repair that harm and how we can make sure those histories are uplifted in the city. I think 375 is one way we could do that, but I think there are plenty of other ways that we should be exploring in the meantime.
And is it fair to say that the 375 project did help bring more eyes to Black Bottom and understand of what was there in the first place?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's been so much. I mean, a lot of our engagement comes from past residents. But I think because of this project, we've been seeing even more increased engagement from folks that don't have a direct connection, but this project has sparked a new type of curiosity. So, it's definitely helped to amplify the history just on its own. And so we're definitely grateful and appreciative for that.
Yes, I used to live, I believe it's Rivard right there. And I just remember hearing Drummond one day outside my window of my apartment. I said, oh, there's a tour right there happening right outside my window. It's the best thing to hear. But Lex, bringing you into the conversation with the dialogue that community members were having about the 375 project and some increased attention as well. Did you notice that the public was a little bit more aware of what was happening? Did they seem like they were willing to support or willing to volunteer or willing to just have conversations more about what was going on within Paradise Valley and Black Bottom?
For sure. So one of the things that I experienced is that during those meetings, there was a lot of questions. The community had a lot of questions, and there was a lot of like invitations for buy-in or support from the project, but they were like, no, but you're not answering like the base level question of like, I don't understand what this is, who asked for this, why are we doing it? And so when we think about the pause, I think that it gives them an opportunity to like create answers for some of those questions. And so it's like an opportunity to be like, okay, let's actually take it a few steps back. Instead of like creating the plan, let's invite more people into that conversation.
Let's extend this conversation period as well, just so we don't cut it off and cut folks off who couldn't make it. And what answers would you like to hear?
The question that I have that people keep having is like, what is the repair? Like, let's acknowledge, like even acknowledging the harm that was done the first time. And to redevelop it is creating all of these different emotions when you've never addressed the initial harm. And so I think that is the thing that I'm most curious about. I'm thinking like what is the thing that, you want to offer to the community, because there's no definitive answers. There's just a lot of like, well, this is what could happen. But everybody, from the folks in the room, their energy was more so like, but what has already happened. And so I think that this pause creates an opportunity just to be able to be like, let's explore that. Let's have more conversations. Let's really try to figure out what people want before just going forth and tearing it up and starting all over again. And a follow-up question, Lex, how does that manifest in a road rebuilding project? How do you see, those, the previous, before we got to this point being addressed? How do we get there? How do we get to starting over?
Yeah.
Or like, I think just having like similar to what we're doing now, just talking to the residents, talking to the former residents, the former families to understand what was lost, what was the impact.
Yeah.
Markers, maybe like, historic markers are cool, but that doesn't do anything for the people. It's not any like tangible thing. It's not even an apology. Like sometimes just acknowledging like this thing happened and it was messed up. Like that thing has never happened before, to be able to like go further, like let's just make it bigger and better and like let's add these things. But it's like, if that's not what people want, or if that's not what they're interested in, and they're wanting to just talk about what happened, so that gives us the opportunity for the work that we do. We talk to the former residents and the descendants of residents to be able to like hear how it impacted their life.
Yeah. And Lex, did Black Bottom Archives have any communications with MDOT, state or city officials about historic recognition ever? Marcia, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been working with interborough partners that was contracted to do some of the community engagement work as part of the city led meetings that were happening. And so there's been discussion, but nothing like tangible sort of ideas that I can offer. But from that, collaboration that we're a part of, I think there's an openness. I think there's like curiosity around what, how we could remember the history beyond having another historical marker.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful about what that could look like.
Yeah. I often talk about just being in that community and living there for a few years and just seeing the plaques and not understanding and realizing where I was, and now understanding the importance of that history. I just really you go through so many different emotions when you first figure out what was really here and what really happened and what it stood for. And it's just one of those things where I'm hoping that more people understand what Black Bottom was and what Paradise Valley was and what it meant to Black Detroit, especially at the time. But my guests are Marcia Black and Lex Draper Garcia Bay from the Black Bottom Archives. We're talking about the importance of historical preservation and recognition of Detroit's Black Bottom neighborhood. MDOT recently postponed the I-375 reconstruction project, citing funding and community concerns. Now, Lex, we're just jumping back in here because we were talking a little bit beforehand. The archives, the Black Bottom Archives 10th anniversary exhibit, it's called 10 Years Back, 10 Years Forward. It's on display at the Detroit Historical Museum until September 14th. Now let's start with 10 years back. What have you been up to in the last decade, gathering, preserving, and telling the history of Black Bottom?
Oh, man, we've been up to a lot of everything. So that's actually what the exhibit talks about. It's like the beginning of our work. And so it started off as a Tumblr page. And then from there, it was a Black business.
Tumblr.
Right? Throwback, right? Right? So it started off as a Tumblr page. And then it was the Black Business Directory. And then we started into like oral histories and things, collecting oral histories from people who lived in the neighborhood. And so from there, you know, that's really just like our launch point. And then we've been, you know, doing work of the Black Bottom Street View exhibit, which is on display. Half of it is on display in Michigan History Center in Lansing. And then later this year, we're going to be opening up another exhibit called From the Bottom Up, which is like a love letter to Detroit, to Black Bottom, to the residents. What is the word? The culmination of a couple of years long project, Sankofa Community Research Project that we've been running.
Yeah. And can you go a little bit more into the research project?
Oh, absolutely. So the project has been an opportunity for us to collect oral histories. We set a goal for collecting about 100 stories from Black Bottom residents, people who lived, worked, played in Black Bottom or Paradise Valley, and the descendants of those folks. And so far we have, I believe, 50 stories so far, and we've been able to just really get an idea of what it is that was lost, what the neighborhood was like, and then what they imagine repair to look like.
And what are some of the responses to repair looking like from those who live there, played there, worked there, or who are descendants? Like, what does that look like?
A lot of it varies. We get a lot of responses, like people would like to see like a building, like a Black Detroit museum, like specific to Black Detroit history. Places like residential space, some reparations for the folks that were affected. It varies, but it's all very like, the common thread is like just making sure that they're pouring into the former descendants and people who were in the areas.
Yeah, just don't forget their memory. Don't forget who was there before it was taken away and torn down. But how has public awareness about Black Bottom changed in the time that you all, 10 years past to where we are now?
It's a lot more. I think that what you were mentioning earlier about like living in an area and not knowing what was going on, that's actually how Black Bottom started. It's just folks that were just like curious as to like what's going on and recognizing like the vastness of the history. And so from there, you know, we're like, oh, people are like, oh, I follow your work. They're really familiar with the project and like are really following along and much more interested. And so that means that like, you know, stuff like this helps us to get the word out.
And I don't want to cut you off, but I'm looking at the time now. We're getting down to the end, and I could talk to you about history and talk about this all day. However, I do want to talk about the fellowship you just started. If you could give us a brief, little snippet about it.
It's the Preserving Black Legacy Fellowship. It's a year-long program. Black Detroiters are focused on the stories of their neighborhoods, and so we're teaching them how to be archivists and to preserve their stories of their neighborhoods. So the same thing that we're doing with Black Bottom, we're doing for different neighborhoods.
That sounds amazing. We're going to talk about that at another time. But Marcy, I did want to bring you back into the conversation because you also wanted to talk about something new that you all were doing.
Yeah. So because of the attention we got with the Sankofa Research Project and the 375 Project, we were connected with Tim Burke, who's a Detroit-based artist and collector who found bags of records that document the displaced people and businesses of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. And so we've been building a relationship with him, and I've started to digitize records that document the displaced residents. And so we're looking to do some work of publicizing that list and seeing if there's some descendants that don't know that they have that connection that can join this conversation about what the future of 375 can look like.
That's absolutely amazing because there is so much power and knowledge. And, if you're looking through the list and my name pops up, I promise you, I'm the first one at the door knocking like, I'm on my way. This is amazing to just think about. And I would love to have you all back soon to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the Month of Design, Detroit Month of Design. Absolutely. And then as well talk about the fellowship and talk a little bit more about what you're going to be doing with these records and the call out to residents of the city who may be descendants of those who lived, worked, and thrived in Paradise Paradise Valley, and in Black Bottom, of course. Marcia Black is Director of Archives and Education at Black Bottom Archives, and Lex Draper Garcia Bay is Director of Community Engagement and Programs there. Marcia and Lex, thank you both for joining us on the Metro today.
Thank
you
so
much. Always happy to be here.
Of course, and the exhibition 10 Years Back, 10 Years Forward, Black Bottom Archives is on display at the Detroit Historical Museum. It closes September 14th, but there will be another one following up in November. MDOT plans for the I-375 Reconstructing Communities project are on hold for now. The Metro is hosted by Robin Vincent and myself and produced by Sam Corey, Carey Jr. II, and Jack Philbrandt. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Our music's done by Sam Bobian, and our senior producer is David Lyons. The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University, and this is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Have a great day.